Welcome to the Torahbirthing podcast. Hey, my name is Batya Khan. I'm a Rebbetzin, doula, and childbirth educator. My mission is to help women have the best transition into motherhood that you could possibly wish for, so you could fulfill your tafkid with support and recognize the power that you have. The Torah is the guidebook for our lives. It's the best mindset work that you could possibly do. Are you familiar with it? It's important to know, it's important to learn, so let's do this. The birth process starts way before pregnancy. Birth is a very holy thing, in part because it's the culmination of the creation of a child. It's the end of it. It's the seeing and the playing out of all the parts that were going on to make it happen. And there's a whole lot of other things at play here. And one of the most important times and the factors that you have control over is the intimacy that's involved in the creation of your child. I'm very into this and into thinking about this because I am almost done my certification as a college teacher. So I'm watching and listening and seeing all the things that are going on in connection to intimacy and our discussion of it and how we see it and how we view it. This is something that is so important and so crucial to think about. Because during intimacy, you're creating that child with Hashem and helping shape what that child's mannerisms are going to be. You have a special power to create the way that child is going to be expressed in this world. That potential child. That is, if there's going to be a child at all, that fact is up to Hashem. But how it's going to play out, a lot of that is in your hands. What choices are you going to make as a couple? Your perspective on the whole process of the creation of a child is something that has a deep effect on your life, your family, and how your children are going to view it later. So it's never too late. The topic of intimacy is a very personal one, and honestly, it could feel like a super dirty one too. It's something that many women, many people feel shame and embarrassment about. And this past Motzei Shabbos, my mother gave a class discussing the ins and outs of intimacy and halacha and ways that we could grow and bring in more holiness into our homes. And it really got me thinking about some of the big misconceptions about what intimacy is. See, on Instagram, there are a whole lot of people, college teachers and different professionals in our frum communities talking about it. And some of them are making blanket statements. Honestly, with some of it, it feels like the holiness got sucked out and killed. And I really don't like to see it. It's not just on Instagram. I think that Instagram exacerbates it. But people are saying that everything that you do in the bedroom is okay and everything is allowed. Not that that's not true, because it is true, in a sense. The Torah is the most free thing in the world. It leaves space for everyone and every person. Just talk to your understanding Rav and you'll see. Don't get me wrong. Every relationship is different and needs different things. But there is room to grow in so many ways that are outlined in halacha and are unfortunately not the things that are talked about on Instagram. The problem is twofold. Firstly, there is a time and a place to discuss everything. And in my opinion, Instagram is not it. Instagram can help bring awareness, but it's not the place for the actual discussion. And two, that's a bit related, that the people who are saying this and talking about this and twisting this are coming about it from a completely and totally wrong perspective. And it's not such a mystery how the entire thing got twisted. It comes from our discussion of the Kiyor. The Kiyor is a special keli of the Mishkan that we're learning about in Parshas Ki Tisa. It's exclusively and separately talked about in Ki Tisa. There's no other kelim that are talked about in this parsha, because the Kiyor is special and it was different. The Kiyor was made out of mirrors that Jewish women used to beautify themselves in Mitzrayim. The women wanted to bring their copper that they used as a donation to the Mishkan. They made themselves look beautiful in Mitzrayim. They seduced their husbands, and then they were with their husbands. And that was how they were able to create a whole new Jewish generations of the Jewish people. And our nation continued on. Their husbands were totally exhausted and uninterested in the whole thing. And the Jewish women made this holy situation happen every time. So here's the thing. These mirrors were a really low thing. And they were connected to the Yetzer Hara. The Yetzer Hara is what gets this going in part. And Chachamim, they took away the Yetzer Hara for Avodah Zarah. You know how we sometimes think, I don't understand how so many people served Avodah Zarah, and it was a cycle that kept happening in Navi especially. So the reason why we don't understand that is because the Chachamim took away the Yetzer Hara for Avodah Zarah. They also, at the same time, tried to take away the Yetzer Hara for intimacy, because they figured, why in the world should we keep the desire? It leads to so much negativity and so many averos outside of marriage and different things. And so they decided that the desire itself is actually undesirable, even in strong marriages. Wouldn't it be great if we could live and create without any shame and without any desire? This is what Moshe said. When in discussion with Hashem over these copper mirrors that the women wanted to donate for the Kiyor, Moshe told Hashem, it's disgusting. Because from Moshe's perspective, Hashem wants a home in this world. Hashem wants a Mishkan. Hashem wants to live and dwell amongst us. He wants the Jewish people to contribute their physical stuff to the Mishkan. Hashem wants every Jew to give all of himself, all of his physicality over to create a home for him. But the mirrors are way too physical. That's just gross. It doesn't fit in the Mishkan. Certain things don't belong in the Mishkan. But what the Chachamim discovered is that they couldn't divorce desire from intimacy. If they got rid of desire, there would be no continuation of the Jewish people. And that is what Hashem told Moshe at this time. Moshe, you don't get it. Hashem says, I want this stuff from the women. It is the most precious to me. Elu chavivin alay min hakol. Actually, I want to be in the lowest levels and in the lowest things. The stuff that looks so low and connected to the Yetzer Hara and connected to desire. This is something that needs to be in creation of my home. It belongs there. The thing that you find disgusting, Moshe, what you feel is a necessary evil, like, yeah, they needed it to continue the Jewish people. That's what Hashem actually wants. That's the highest level. So sometimes we take the desire and we focus too much on the desire when it's not really something that can be divorced from the intimacy. Desire needs to be channeled together with the intimacy. We can't take it and divorce it like people do on Instagram. Hashem wants to be in our bedrooms because Hashem is in our bedrooms. Remember we mentioned how intimacy that has the goal of creation of a child specifically is the literal highest partnership that a human being could have with God. It's not a joke. It's true, and it's holy. I'm going to link that episode in the show notes because it's an important one. The pasuk says in Bereshis, "The Adam yada es Chava," and Adam and Chava had children. We know that Torah is not a history book. It's a life lesson. Adam and Chava's children were conceived and born in Gan Eden. But the pasuk talks about it after the story of Chetei Tadas in chronology, when Adam and Chava were already kicked out of Gan Eden. But sometimes the Torah is written out of order. And there is a reason for this. Intimacy is and was holy. It was happening and created the first children in Gan Eden. But because it was written after, the Christians are the ones who take this and say that intimacy is a necessary evil in life. If you want to be the holiest and connected to God, actually, you don't engage in physical intimacy. The highest people, they don't do this stuff. The people who are closest to God in Christianity. But their perception is warped because it's not something that we could have for ourselves. In their minds, they learn the Torah in chronological order. And they say that intimacy became a thing after Adam and Chava were banished from Gan Eden. This is not the case at all, and we can't get confused by it. Hashem says, I am part of this union, and it's holy. He tells Moshe, I want these mirrors. These women, they put in the work. They made their intimacy theirs, and they carried it forward. They took the desire, and they took the connection, and they fused it together. They used it together. We can't have one without the other. These women, they focused on their personal relationships. There was no divorce of the desire and the oneness. These mirrors look like the lowest vanity. And Moshe thought they were absolutely disgusting because of the desire. The truth is, there is a way to make it disgusting. But that's not what the women in Mitzrayim did. They made it the holiest holiness. They took that desire and they brought it forth into the oneness, into the Mishkan, to Hashem. It became real in the creation of their children, and it was physically embodied in the Kiyor. The Kiyor was the embodiment of the desire and the oneness. The Kiyor became a super necessary part of the Mishkan, is where you wash off everything else and prepare for the avoda. No one could do their avoda without it, including, by the way, Moshe in the Shivas Yemei Miluim, in the 7 days that the Mishkan was being dedicated. Moshe was actually a Kohen, and he did the avoda. And there were 4 slots in the Kiyor for washing, for the Kohanim to prepare themselves. There was a slot for Aaron, there was a slot for Elazar, and there was a slot for Itamar, Elazar and Itamar, the children of Aaron. And there was a 4th slot that Moshe was using. And Moshe, Aaron, Elazar, and Itamar were the representatives of all the future Kohanim that were going to do the avoda. So even Moshe was inside the Kiyor. Even Moshe got the point at the end. And this was only because the women did it right. They worked on their intimacy, and they didn't say that it's a necessary evil. They didn't say that the desire was a necessary thing. The desire is what Hashem wanted. They worked on it. They made it more holy. They leveled up, and they invited Hashem in all the way. They made him comfortable. This, in our lives, is going to look different for each of us. But one thing I see coming up is people saying, maybe halacha is not practical for us today. Maybe what it says in the Shulchan Aruch is too much. It's too extreme. If you don't know what it says, you should go learn it, because you'll see what I'm talking about. Maybe the Gedolim today and the Rabbanim today paskin for our generation a different thing. Maybe they'll say we should be doing something different. But the truth is that the Torah never changed. The halacha, it talks about all the different levels. It talks about the fact that everything is okay. The consideration is built in. But it also talks about what the highest ideals are for each of our relationships. And it's not that everyone's holding at the same place yet, but the consideration and the levels are built in over there. If you learn something and you realize that you aren't there yet, it doesn't mean that it's not a general thing that might be practical one day. It means that you have more room to grow, as we all do. And that is so beautiful. There's so much work that's being done on talking away the taboo, and it's important stuff. But hello, the Torah already did that job. The Torah is explaining to us with the Kiyor and with Moshe's perception, and you can see it in halacha, that really this is not something that is taboo. It's just holy and it's private. The desire is special to Hashem. The desire is part of the oneness. Kids are very curious, and they want to know everything. They want to know where babies come from, and they wonder about a whole lot of everything in life. One day, if you don't have kids yet these age, or if you do, you might have already gotten the question, but you will be asked, Mommy, where do babies come from? And that answer that you give is going to be reflective of how you view that entire process of how the babies are born and how they come into being. What gift you could give to your families is your perception of this. Inside the bedroom is private between you and your husband. But your attitude and your perspective to bringing Hashem in bleeds out to the rest of your family. Your children can feel it. How do you view your Yiddishkeit? What is important and what's of value to you? And is that all coming from the best sources? In this especially. Do you need guidance? Is there anything that you could learn and continue to talk about? Because it's out there from Torah sources. Because the Torah already talked away the taboo. It's already all there. The Torah explained how holy and desired this is to Hashem. Hashem's desire for the world is actually matching our desire. Desire is something that Hashem had when creating this world. Hashem is telling us in this parsha that desire is not a necessary evil. It's actually what Hashem sees as the most precious thing, and that it's so beautiful. It's just how we do it. If your own perspective is a Torah one on this topic, and your thoughts and your mindset and the way you teach it to your children is going to be so on point. Our children gain the most from hearing it from us, and they could sense how we really feel. We could pass down this awesome connection with Hashem. V'haya machanecha kadosh. And your camp will be holy. You can do this. You can show this. And you could be the embodiment of this beautiful gift. It's just time to think about it. It's time to notice it. And time to grow it.
Welcome to the Torahbirthing podcast. My name is Batya Khan. I'm a Rebbetzin, doula, and childbirth educator. In this podcast, we discuss the Torah stories that are holy and have a major effect on our lives. It's important to know, it's important to learn, so let's do this.